Welcome, Gunrunner.
I've always loved Halloween. In fact, I love anything spooky in general. As a kid, I was obsessed by Ghostbusters, and still am to be honest, and any kind of ghost stories, with the latter turning into a real passion for horror films as I got older. I now share this passion with my wife, and although I don't get dressed up and go out anymore, I do still mark the occasion with a good horror film and some appropriate snacks. Because of my love for horror and Halloween, I've always wanted to make a Halloween themed gaming video, but I never have for whatever reason, although I've written plenty of articles on the subject over the years. I think one reason was it seemed like everyone was doing it at one point, and you always saw the same old games featured across all the mainstream retro gaming channels. So when I decided that I was going to do one this year, I really wanted to make mine a bit different, and feature games that are lesser known. To add a bit more focus, I decided to make it 8-bit games only, to relive some childhood memories and give a nice comparison across rival formats. So the games I've chosen are all personal favourites of mine, as well as being less obvious examples of spooky games. I'm hoping there are at least a couple of games here that you haven't played before, and I'll give you some inspiration for what to play this coming Halloween holiday. Now, with all that in mind, let's take a look at 10 Spooktacular classics.
Toys R Us has the Big Bird Halloween costume and the Yoda Halloween costume for trick-or-treating.
Starring Al Lewis in his famous role as Grandpa from the classic TV show The Munsters, Midnight Mutants is a very unique game for the 7800 indeed. Not only this though, as it's also one of the system's best exclusives and amongst its best titles full stop. Programmed by the always excellent Sculptured Software under their Radioactive moniker, Midnight Mutants is an isometric adventure game that harks back to the days of 8-bit computing, and especially Ultimate Play the Game's output for the ZX Spectrum. You're on a mission to rescue Grandpa himself, who's been captured and trapped in a haunted mansion. You must make your way around the house and its expansive grounds, solving puzzles, collecting objects, and avoiding all the terrifying monsters that are trying to stop you. Along the way, Grandpa himself will actually talk to you and give you tips on how to progress, so heed his wise words. Midnight Mutants features some of the best graphics you'll see on the Atari 7800, with loads of colour, great sprites and a cool 3D effect. The audio is also better than your average 7800 title too. There's no doubting it has some of the deepest gameplay of any Pro System game out there, and when talking about the best reasons to own Atari's classic 8-bit console, Midnight Mutants should be one of the first things that you mention. It's a genuine must-have title. As an impressionable young teen, there was only one thing I really couldn't get enough of, and that was 18 rated movies. It's not just that watching them made you feel pretty cool, it was also that I just loved the sight of blood and guts. Films like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street and of course Friday the 13th were the staple of film nights around my best mate's house, so I was pretty darn stoked when I received this game from one of my friends for my birthday. In reality, Friday the 13th is one of those games that you know is probably a bit crap, but the memories of it make it seem so much better. Famously, the game is never actually finished, as there's no way to actually complete it. What you're supposed to do is wander around Crystal Lakes trying to save your friends and ultimately kill Jason Voorhees himself. Except it doesn't matter how many times you do kill him, he always comes back. I suppose this does fit in line with the almost endless sequels. Dotted around the landscape you'll find various objects that can be picked up and used to help you complete your task. The status panel below shows you each of your friends and they turn into gravestones as they're struck off. Graphically the game is pretty laughable with poorly drawn sprites and a very basic looking landscape. The sound isn't much better either, including the ear splitting screams, but there's just something about this game I love. There are loads of really obvious games I could cover with regards to the NES. There are already more than enough videos out there about the likes of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Friday the 13th and Castlevania, so I've gone for something a little bit left field. Now many people don't even seem to realise that the NES has a version of Splat House, and it's easy to understand why, given Nintendo's more family friendly image that usually stopped games like this getting released. But it does, albeit as a Japanese only Famicom game rather than a Western release. Subtitled Wanpaku Graffiti, whatever that means, this was actually designed as a parody of the original coin-op, rather than a straight conversion, something we saw quite a few times on the system in fact. This one features a lot of platform game elements, being less focused on the beat-em-up gameplay we all know and love, and instead of using punches and kicks, Rick now wields an axe and can also pick up a shotgun with limited ammo during certain levels. Another new feature is the experience point system, where your health bar grows once you've defeated a set number of enemies. Okay, so it lacks the blood and gore, but the graphics are really cool, and the spooky music here is a nice touch too. It's also worth noting that this great little oddity has also been fully translated into English now for your extra enjoyment. I don't think I need to tell you that Vampire Killer is the original name for the legendary Konami franchise of Castlevania. What you might not know is that for this MSX2 release, the name was never actually changed when it was released in Europe. This is because Vampire Killer on the MSX was actually developed alongside the Nintendo Famicom version and then released in the West first, before the Castlevania name had been decided on for the NES release. While Vampire Killer shares the same premise, soundtrack, characters and locations, the structure of the game and its play mechanics differs significantly from its NES counterpart. Like Castlevania, it also consists of 18 stages with a boss encounter at the end of every third stage, but in contrast to the linear level designs of the NES game, Vampire Killer features more labyrinth-like stages, requiring the player to not only seek out the exit to the next stage, but also the skeleton key required to unlock it. The MSX game is also flip screen rather than scrolling, and allows you to purchase new weapons from traders to replace your trusty whip. There are also lots of other minor differences too, but it would simply take too long to list them all here. Vampire Killer unsurprisingly impresses both sonically and visually, and really pushes the hardware on both fronts. Definitely one of the best arcade adventures available for the MSX2 range. Based on the popular horror film of the same name, you are babysitter Jamie Lee Curtis, and you must rescue the children before Michael Myers hunts them down and kills them. The children are just wandering around the house, so the first thing you need to do is find them and then get them to follow you to one of the safe rooms. These are located at each end of the house, which comprises of 16 rooms set over 2 levels. There are doors that allow you to move around the house, and your character has some limited up and down movement. As Myers himself moves very slowly, it's quite easy to outrun him, but the limited vertical movement makes dodging him a lot harder. Somewhere in the house is a knife, and if you find this you can kill him, although of course he does come back. This is only a temporary bit of relief. The upstairs of the house also has an electrical problem, so some rooms will randomly black out, leaving you helpless. The only way you know Myers is in the room is that the iconic Halloween music will start playing. Halloween looks great, especially the gory deaths, and the music is incredibly impressive too. All in all, this is a very enjoyable and slick horror themed romp. Monster of Darkness was a game that really surprised me when I first played it. At first look, it seems to be nothing more than a rip-off of Konami's Castlevania games, and that is actually a pretty fair assumption, but it's not to say that it's not an incredibly good one. You play a vampire killer in historic London, the full moon has come, and that can only mean one thing: the Master of Darkness is coming. You follow the Thames River through London as you search for Dracula's lair. Along the way you have to fight against vampire bats, zombies, violent thugs and rabid dogs. By looking for the mask icons, you can also increase your chances of survival, as when you smash them, new weapons and vials of blood that restore your health can be found. You start off with a dagger in your hand, but other weapons include a stick, hammer, a gun and some very useful bombs too. You can switch between these when needed, so I recommend keeping your best weaponry for when you meet Dracula himself. The graphics in this game are beautiful, with a dark and moody backgrounds and nice touches of detail. The sound is also wonderfully atmospheric too, with music that really sets the scene perfectly. The gameplay never stops here as you explore each location, and the brisk pace of the whole game adds a nice sense of urgency to the affair. This is one of Sega's best kept secrets. You are Harry, a paranormal investigator who has been hired to rid the spooky Fairport mansion of ghosts for once and for all. The ghosts are everywhere, so avoiding them will be tricky. You'll also need to watch out for the many booby traps that have been left behind by the previous investigators. The only way you can capture all these menacing ghouls is by finding the 8 keys to unlock the ghost chamber below the house. You're going to need to search every room of this frightful abode if you're going to complete your task successfully. Ghost Chase is a highly challenging platform style arcade adventure with more than a few surprises up its spooky sleeve. It's a flick screen affair, but the rooms are linked both horizontally and vertically, with doors and ladders being used to find your way around. I really love the way you start off outside and actually have to find your way in before you can even start the game. The nice moody visuals really help to set the tone here, and the sprites in particular really stand out. There's also lots of spooky sound effects to accompany the action too, as well as a nice piece of music on the title screen. This fairly obscure title by New York based software house Artworks is highly regarded by many Atari 8-bit owners, and it's easy to see why, as it will keep you spooked well into the night and makes the perfect game to pull out the disc box this Halloween. The original Ghostbusters by Activision was actually credited as being the best-selling video game ever at one point, so it was always inevitable that there would be a rush to deliver a game based on the second film too. In the end, both Activision and HAL Laboratory picked up the rights. To try and ease any confusion between the games, HAL also released their title as New Ghostbusters 2 in regions where Activision's alternative version was also on sale. However, this is the only Game Boy version, so we don't have to worry about that too much here. HAL's game certainly takes on a very different style to its counterpart, taking the form of a top-down dungeon crawler game that reminded me a lot of Gauntlet in many ways. What's pretty unique though is the way you control two of the Ghostbusters at once, with one of them zapping the ghosts and the other releasing the traps. You control the first Buster, with the second one following behind at all times and reacting where needed. They will also help you in the boss fights, which is very useful indeed. You have to capture a set number of ghosts to complete each level. If you clear it before time runs out, you get a big bonus. Each of the 5 levels takes in a different location from the film, and the visuals look great, with a nice cartoony style. The music is also fantastic here and will have you bopping along. Ghostbusters 2 is a real hidden gem for the little Game Boy. Era Informatique, like many other French developers of the time, had a bit of a reputation for releasing rather strange games. However, they always had a certain Gallic flair to them, with strange graphics and liberal use of digitised sounds for maximum effect. However, now and again they would come up with a gem like Warlock's Quest. This game can best be described as a cross between Ghosts and Goblins and Pitfall. The screen is split into 2 distinct sections, overground and underground, much like Pitfall, and it also has a seriously spooky theme to it, as the name already implies, which is more like the Capcom game. You control this tiny little wizard as you move the way through the levels, blasting the ghoulish enemies and collecting the different objects. Strangely, this game is also flip screen, again like Pitfall, something you probably wouldn't have expected to see in 1989. I never actually did finish this game or really figure out what was the point of this quest, but I loved playing it for its spooky atmosphere if nothing else. The random thunder and lightning effects are certainly a really great touch too. The graphics are very small but nicely detailed and perfectly formed. And the other sound effects are also pretty decent if unspectacular. Warlock's Quest is certainly one of the less obvious horror themed games for the Commodore 64 and a worthy game to play this Halloween. It's not well known, but Ghost House for the Master System was actually based on an obscure 1982 Sega coin-op called Monster Bash, and combines elements from several genres, beat 'em up, platformer and arcade adventure. It was originally released in the rather cool Sega card format, but later got a release on cartridge too. In the game you play a young vampire hunter called Mick, who is searching a haunted mansion to try and find and destroy the 5 vampires who lurk there. You must first locate the keys, and then find the coffins in order to open them and unleash your nemesis, and then get ready for his destruction. Your character can jump, punch, duck and climb ladders in order to make his way through the house, and all these skills will be required. Vampire bats, ghosts and fire-breathing demons are all out to stop you, and the respawning bats in particular are relentless. When one of the 5 versions of Dracula appears on the scene, you'll really need to have your wits about you. Finding the sword before you face him helps a lot too. Ghost House has some really nice visuals. They are both colourful and near enough flicker free. The audio is also up to the same high standard with the creepy music and sound effects. Without doubt, Ghost House is a real hidden gem in the Master System library, and a game that should now be finding its way to the top of your playlist this Halloween.
Look out, because this Halloween, Toys R Us is your Halloween headquarters. You'll find every trick or treat under the moon. A monstrous selection of costumes and a dungeon full of decorations at prices so low, you'll howl. So this Halloween, bring the entire family to Toys R Us for a Halloween selection so huge. It's scary.
And that rounds up my look at 10 spooky 8-bit games to enjoy this Halloween. Perhaps I will return with a list of 16-bit games next year, you never know. But before I do go, do you have any suggestions of your own that people should check out? Or do you have something to say about my own picks? As always, I love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I head off though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons to continue to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to the following patrons and YouTube backers in particular, without your appreciated pledges: Grady Haynes, Mitchell Valentino, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Dos Gamerman, Sonic Mania 999, Paul Daniel, Andrew McKay, Retro Resolution, Matt Standish, James Taylor, Drogdor the Burninator, Mins, 8-Bit Guy, Luke MC, Ben P. Stein, Colima Torn, Tabby Kitsune, Alan J. Dodds, Daniel Skoronsky, and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights, and much more besides. I've been the Laird, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.